Hello, welcome to the February 2024 koha-US Cataloging Special Interest Group. This month I was looking at the koha manual at koha-community.org, and I was looking specifically at the OCLC Gateway section, and I attended the documentation workshop, and I have ideas for improvements to that section that I'd like to make. We are an OCLC Connexion client user, so I'm familiar with the gateway that way. But what I want to put out there is if anybody is using OCLC Record Manager, if they'd like to be in touch to be sure that the OCLC Gateway documentation for koha works for OCLC Record Manager users, as well as we OCLC Connexion client users, that would be great. So I'm putting that out there. Please get in touch with me. Let me know. And I'll also, post to the koha list, that sort of thing, and reach out that way. And
I guess my question here on this topic is, are you talking about integrating the OCLC Record Manager like as a target in the Z3950 dropdown in koha?
No, I'm talking about...
Which part of the manual are you talking about? I guess that's my question. Do you have a link to share?
Yeah, let me get the link. This is the part of the manual that has to do with setting OCLC up to export bibliographic records one by one directly into koha.
Okay. That's we use Record Manager, but we don't have it set up to send records directly into koha. We go out, we download the record, and then we import it separately. And the reason we do that is because not all of our member libraries have access to OCLC Record Manager. And my experience has been that if you set it up for one member of the system, then all the member libraries have access to it. So I would need to see the documentation to know if it can be set up on a library by library basis.
Okay, there's the link to the section of the manual that I'm looking at. And the ideas I have for it are just pretty much elaborations to make it a little bit clearer. I noticed that we have things in our procedures that apply to koha in general. For example, little things like to overlay a bib record, include a 999 subfield C in the record with the koha record number of the record to be overlaid, nitty gritty like that, but it's important for how the feature works that we've found.
Yeah, I have a feeling this is something I will not be able to use because our IT department has blocked pretty much every port.
They're not willing to unblock things for you, Fred?
They won't even give us a static IP address.
Yeah, we don't have that either, or at least most of my libraries don't. Some of the smaller internet service providers around here can't provide a static IP address. So.
It's industry standard for at least medical publishers, IP validation.
I'm sure it is, yeah.
But now just too complicated for them.
Yeah, a lot of people are noting in the chat they either don't have OCLC or do the same as George, download and then import into koha.
Yeah, this looks like different than what I was thinking. It seems to me there was a way to have OCLC set up as a Z3950 target. And that was something that we could not do here because, but this is using their desktop client.
Exactly.
And so I've never used that. So
I have.
we use the, we get records from OCLC like maybe 20 times a year. So it's never anything that we pursued. So I guess I'm looking forward to the instructions for that you're about to create.
Well, it's the one change that I saw that was immediate was it just refers to OCLC connection. And since there's currently two connection interfaces, there's the connection client desktop software and connection browser. Connection browser is being deprecated. I thought if it's saying connection, we can just say connection client sort of thing. But yeah, I would like to reach out, and while we're making the changes, if we can also make this useful for Record Manager.
So is this desktop client not going away as part of this OCLC change?
Right.
Okay.
They are so far committed to the desktop client software, which is delightful because it has a lot of functionality that you can't otherwise get. A lot of macros and text string functionality. Also, a lot of batch processes that are super useful.
And a learning curve.
It's easier than I think people think it is. It's just old. It doesn't look WYSIWYG and slick. Yeah, but it's easier than people think it is.
The old doesn't bother me. I am old.
Yeah, Michelle says easier than Go. Yeah, I
I
could
thought
see that.
Go was pretty intuitive. Get my current problem and
Go ahead, Fred. You mentioned you had
no,
something to bring to the group.
no,
Let's
I mean
go ahead.
my current problem with OCLC connection. If I download the file, the first time I downloaded it, I gave it a file name, and now I can't seem to give it a different file name. But I have to go back and figure out what's happening so I can explain it a lot better. So that's one for next month.
Yeah, we'll be here.
Yep.
What was the other thing you were thinking of bringing to the group?
Oh
That might
yes,
be cataloging, might be systems,
yes, or maybe circulation.
or
Excuse me.
all of them.
Yes. Okay, I discovered recently the hard way that if I catalog a book, it can be in the system. It's associated with a barcode. I printed a spine label, but when I look at it with the OPAC interface, look for it. It's not there. I tried the ISBN. I tried the barcode, author's last name. So the only way I can get it to show up is either check it out and check it back in, or make some sort of change to the either bib record or I think item record, and then it becomes visible. But it's not consistent. Some of them show up first thing, some of them don't. I think what I can do is I can't remember which reporter is items without barcodes or new items. Anyway, just do a batch modify and change, let's say the 952, the one that lost status. I can add something like in the wilderness, do all of those, and then change it back to blank, and then they'll show up. But has anyone else encountered this? And if so, how do you solve it?
The first thing I'm going to ask you is, what version are you running?
2305, I believe.
Okay,
I
asked this because we're having we were upgraded to 2305 on the night of Wednesday, January 16th. And then the first thing I do after any upgrade is just use the system, use it as normally to try to make sure everything works before exploring new features. And on Monday, I discovered that our indexing seems to not be running at all. I import a record in and it's completely unsearchable, unretrievable. I changed subject headings in bibliographic records, and those bib records are not retrievable under the new headings at all. They are still retrievable under the old headings. But
Here's a twist.
uh-huh.
I can find all of this in the staff interface through search. It's just OPEC. Forgot to mention
Okay,
that. I
yeah,
apologize. Now,
that's different.
when I first set up Koha, version 3.12, I had the same problem. Couldn't find anything in the OPEC unless, well, I just checked everything out and in again using the offline circulation module or plugin. I had to do a lot of fiddling around with the files, but it worked. But I haven't had that problem since. Now I have it again, but as I say, it's not consistent. And I can check to see if Elasticsearch is working, but I'm pretty sure it is.
You had me worried there for a second, so I just checked, and I'm not having that problem, the
Okay.
problem you described, Heather.
It's just right now.
You're
It's
just
just new
lucky.
books.
Yay!
It's just new books right now.
Jason pops into the chat, possibly related. We ran into some indexing issues after upgrading to 23.05. Bywater identified this bug and had to run a script to fix the broken records, and he put bug 34014 in the chat. Which is bug 34014. There is no way to fix records with broken mark XML.
Figuring out Mark XML is way, way down on my list of things I need to learn someday.
Yeah, looking at this, I'm not sure it's related to our problem, but I will definitely investigate further. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, I don't understand this one at all. So. Anyway, I have a workaround, which is different from a fix.
Yeah, I had no trouble editing records.
Yeah, just searching in the OPEC doesn't work.
Yeah, I'm seeing our problem is identical in OPAC and Staff Client. Yay!
Well, you have a different problem.
I know. It sounds like maybe we should both go to the systems SIG too.
I'm going to try this with a couple more books. Excuse me. and see if there's any sort of consistency. But yeah, then I think I'll just post it to the koha-US list.
And maybe the main koha list too.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. Well, does anybody else have anything they'd like to bring to the group?
I have a question, but it's kind of not about cataloging, but about searching and the differences between Zebra and Elastic
Sure.
and how
Everything is about cataloging.
Yes.
and how they differ. Our current system, we're on-prem and we're using Zebra. But we're in the process of migrating to Bywater hosting us, and we will be moving to Elastic. And so I know there are some differences. And so when I'm asked the question, I would like to be able to answer properly. So are there certain things in particular that are different, or is it just by the way things are weighted, or how things are cataloged and how it returns in the results?
I'll say that, everything's cataloged the same to our exacting and high standards, of course. The thing I love about Elastic is that you can see the indexing and the weighting, and if you're unsupported, you can change it yourself and then run the script.
Okay.
And if you're supported by Bywater, as we are, you can ask them to make the change and then they will run the scripts. And it's terrific. As a cataloger and someone who's working closely with my researching staff and my reference staff, is they could say, hey, I expect to see up high in the search results when I look for this, and it's not showing up. And being the cataloger, I'm like, oh, they need the 246 subfield B weighted a little bit more. Haha. And simply go check and tell Bywater, please make that change, and boom, done. I love it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my experience too.
And that's my experience with Zebra, is that if you want to change the weights on things, it's a development. It's a major process to change the way that Zebra acts. But with Elasticsearch, it's just a matter of flipping a couple of switches, really.
Okay, so I will be able to make the changes to the weights, or I would have to submit a ticket to Bywater.
Yeah, well, if you're moving to being hosted by Bywater, then all you have to do is let them know how you want it changed, and it can be changed really quickly.
Okay.
I remember there was something previously that wasn't indexed, and getting that one, this is several years ago, getting that one field added to the indexes was like a major change to koha. And with Elasticsearch, just getting something changed in the indexing is like a 20-minute process followed by a reindex.
Okay.
And that's another advantage with reindexing with Zebra, it's with reindexing with Elasticsearch as opposed to Zebra, is that with Elastic, when you do a reindex, you can start searching the fields that are indexed as soon as the indexing starts. With Zebra, if you're going to do a reindexing, you have to wait until the full reindexing is done before anything is searchable. But with Elastic, as soon as it starts reindexing, once the records are reindexed, they're searchable. So there's less downtime with reindexing.
Yeah, when I was doing the author's catalog, I wanted to add a couple of search fields to Zebra, and yes, George said it took me ages to figure out how to do it. And now I think I want to be able to search by 856U, which I use for the DOI, and click add 856 subfield U, update, reindex. I still haven't figured out what the shards are doing and how to change that from green to yellow, yellow to green. But it works at yellow, and if it works, it works. Oh.
I will also add that if you are supported by Bywater, you do want them to make this change because the scripts need to be run, that they are the ones that have access to it in order to affect the changes on your system. But also, if they get requests, common requests from different institutions to index in the same way, they'll think, oh yeah, hey, this is a common change. Perhaps we should make this part of the default that we recommend for all new Elasticsearch users. So,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, and Michelle puts in the chat, isn't Zebra slower because it looks at the entire record, whereas ES weighs the field so it's faster? Could be. I don't remember. We haven't used Zebra for quite a while, but Jason says, yeah, Elasticsearch sped up quite a bit. But then also Jason put in, the only thing we lost with Elastic was built-in fuzzy search. It doesn't pay attention to the QueryFuzzy syspref. So we had to train people on the syntax, and he puts a helpful link in the chat.
Thank you.
Another thing with 2305 is in the staff client, there's an Elasticsearch record link display that you can see and see some of the information.
There's one more thing, and I think
Sure.
I've asked this in another meeting about the whole slip, how the process works natively without making any changes to it. Can anyone kind of tell me how it should work?
So when you say the hold slip, what do you mean?
Like when someone comes into your library and they place a hold on an item and it prints out the call slip.
Oh, the call slip. Okay,
Yeah.
so when you place a request in Koha, it creates a record in a table called reserves. And then there's a real-time holds queue that you can turn on that will make it possible for you to generate to run a report and generate a list of what currently has holds on it.
Okay.
And so you're going to want to, when you migrate, you're going to want to make sure you let Bywater know that you want to use the real-time holds queue. And then they can, for us, the process, we don't have the real-time holds queue turned on because we've got 50 locations. And so we have the holds queue generates every hour. But, when you generate that report, it gives you a list of, there are so many ways to vary the configuration. Now, my recollection is that you've got one location and the items, I'm trying to remember, you're at a historical society, right? Or the state archives, is that it?
Yes. Yes, we're a state archive.
So my recollection is that you only have one location and people aren't allowed to take things out of the library, right?
Right, they cannot take items out, no.
Yeah, so when you place a request on something and then you want to generate a call slip to go pick it up out of storage or wherever it is you're keeping it that the patrons don't have access to, then you're going to have to create a workflow that you're regularly checking to see what's in the holds queue and generating those slips. And that's kind of a different workflow than what we do. So I would work with Bywater on figuring out what a workflow is going to be that works with you, because the way we do it is we have our member libraries print that report once a day in the morning, and they go pull things and send them in a courier to other libraries. So it's going to be completely different from the way you guys do it. So
I would add too that our situation is similar. We're a museum library where items don't circulate. A lot of our researchers will use the cart feature. They will add what they want to a cart and then just email that cart to the reference librarian. So that's a workflow that also works. And we find that it kind of varies by researcher what they're more used to and what they like using. But the
Okay.
cart feature works great too for that.
Okay.
And you can turn a cart into a list. So if they want to keep it and your people are allowed to log in and make their own lists, that may be a little easier. And I think going from cart to list is easier than just creating a list.
Okay. Thank
For
you.
us, oh, of course, for us, we allow someone to have a login with just an email address. So a lot of our external researchers or, our non-staff public researchers can have a very brief patron record, and then that allows them to use the list features, the easier with the cart and everything like that.
Okay. Well, I have some things to take back to the staff and to Bywater. So thank you very much.
Of course, let us know how it's going.
Okay. Well, everything with the migration has been going great. We got our single sign-on straightened out. We had trouble with that, but we got that straightened out. So the only thing that's holding us up is the cost. And so once we get that figured out, then we will be ready to switch.
Does anybody else have anything they'd like to bring to the group?
I have a question. We're about to get Aspen. Is that going to affect, how big a mess is our catalog going to be in? What do we need to do to fix it so this will work like it's supposed to work? I'm afraid it's going to, I don't know. I think we need to do something to it, but nobody will tell me what.
All I could say is Montgomery County Public Library, which is my local public library, uses Aspen, and you can still search the catalog, but you end up searching a lot of other things too. And I haven't tried it enough to know if you can just search the catalog. But they have an enormous range of resources.
Yeah, we're not an Aspen user, but as I understand it, it's a discovery layer. And so it will search the things you ask it to search and bring them back. And as far as your catalog records go, I think it should be absolutely fine, and perhaps works better for searching and retrievable and searching, retrieving, and displaying.
We went to Aspen, I think 2 years ago, and I'm not very involved in the setup of the Aspen side. That's another staff member, but she has a lot of options for tweaking it to have it linked to, make this attached to this thing, like when you narrow the search results, we wanted it to include the collection code because that's used by us a lot, but other libraries might not use the collection code, so they don't have it included in their search results. And she can, since it does the ferberization where it looks at the titles of things and puts them all together, and so then you just get one record that has everything with that title. Sometimes you end up with things that are the same title but not the same item, so you kind of have to do some tweaking and playing around with it to get it to work how you want it to. I know another thing we had is we have some books that are not allowed to be holds put on them. There are Lucky Day books, And we had to have them on their own bib record just so that they didn't get put into that holds, like when somebody tried to place a hold on that item that did allow holds, because they were the same item, just some can have holds and some can't. So there's a lot of tweaking, but I think the Aspen community and their group, they're really good at sharing how to do those things. They have a lot of help documents and stuff. I'm not too familiar with the back end, but we've been able to figure out most of what we want to do. One of the things with cataloging we did find is if your 008 field isn't filled in with like audience and language, that can really mess up the searching. So if you don't have a language in there, then it won't have those in your search results. Or if you don't have an audience, there's a really nice audience results filtering, but if you don't have that in your records, then it doesn't do you any good.
This is all good to know because we've got a contract sitting in my director's office waiting to be signed to go live with Aspen in September. So it's interesting to hear this from a cataloging perspective.
And not having those fields in your 008 will also affect searching and retrieval for non-Aspen libraries. So
CLAMS is on Aspen, and Juliet, we were able to put, we call them Express, not Lucky Day. So we call them Express or Rentals. They're on the same bib on ours. And we have it grouped in a way that on the main grouping page, on the main search results page, that there is no hold button at the top group level, that you would have to go to each material type. So one is Express, and that has no hold on it, but the other is a book that you can place a hold. So it's all in the same grouping. It's just it then categorized again, so you can have Express books and rentals, and so holdable and non-holdable on the same bib now. So that's new. We've been on since last year. So I don't, that you might be able to do other things. But I've been asking Bywater, since we are hosted by them, and then Aspen has group sessions with other ILSs, but they don't with Koha. And I think we're missing out on a lot of things because they're saying that they're talking to each other, the developers, but they're not talking to the clients part of that, or the partners at that point. And so we're missing a lot of the, oh, this doesn't work in Koha right now, because that's brought up at the Aspen gathering, but that's all we hear it. So if there are others, I think we should have an Aspen Koha users group as well.
Yeah, the fact that I'm not involved with setting up Aspen, it's a mystery to me. I just know that it works. And the other staff member, she kind of understands Koha because she used to have it before me. But there's that disconnect between the two groups, even though they're both supported by Bywater, is interesting.
I'm just thinking that it would not be that difficult for koha-US to create an Aspen Discovery Special Interest Group. Mm-hmm. And I am going, I don't know if anybody else is, but I'm going to the Aspen conference in March in Colorado. And I know that there's an online component to that too. Let me see if I can find the link for the meeting. But as far as developers and the users not communicating well together, I think that's a problem with that. That's kind of a problem with Koha too, maybe not as much as what I'm hearing about Aspen, but it seems like that's a problem with every piece of software I've ever worked with anywhere.
Yeah, it sounds like a good program for the koha-US conference too.
But the other thing is I do the Aspen admin side, and then I do the original cataloging. So you can spend hours grouping and ungrouping, and like all of our serials, I manually grouped them all together because they were separately, because on Koha side, because we're a consortium, we have almost 40 libraries. So for People Weekly, it gets huge. So they need to be on their own bibs. In Aspen, if you don't group them together, they come up separately, like as like People Weekly 2023, People Weekly 2024. And so what we did was we grouped it as People Weekly, and then you can see we put into some of the data in the results screen that you can actually see that's 2023, 2024, 2022. So at least you get the full record in that Ferberized fashion. So you're not scrolling so much on the results page. So there's a lot of tweaking that you can do, had said before, but you can have fun with it. And then, yeah, you can make an edit to like what you want displayed and what you don't. And then you can like just force a reindex on a record and see how it looks. So it's nice when you're cataloging to be able to see like this is how it's going to look to the patron. And if it doesn't look right, you can actually change it right on the spot and see how it will look again.
I did put a link to that AspenCon 2024 in the chat box, and it does say that there will be a robust online presence. So you don't have to go to Colorado to participate, but I'm only like 10 hours away, so I'm going to Colorado.
I also put in the chat a new MARC field from December 2023 that's being developed, which is an ISSN cluster. And in a MARC 21 field O23. And I think this is something that might affect this grouping you're talking about. Certainly is going to have an effect on Ferberizing serials.
I know there was a presentation at Computers and Libraries last year too. Somebody talked about how they customized the CSS on Aspen and made it look prettier. And I think there's a lot of that you can do. You can make changes just like we do with our OPAC, but it's definitely something that we've found is a lot more attractive and user friendly, except for sometimes the search gets a little bit like a little weirder. It is, I guess, the only way to describe it. Sometimes you just have, it's got a little bit of a learning curve, but other than that, we've really been liking moving to Aspen. And one of the things that we have done that might be interest to some people is that we are one part of a consortium, but we're the only library on Aspen in the consortium. So that is something you can do. You can just have just one of the libraries set up on it. Now we're looking to see if it's possible for each of, like, if another library wants to have their own instance, and then they would be set up and keep their Aspen separate. And so that's something we're working towards, but I'm not entirely sure how that works.
The demos and the other consortia like us that are using Aspen do have it set up so that that's one of the things that I like about it, because right now there's one catalog for NEKSearch catalog, but we have some libraries that have third-party vendors like Overdrive. Not all of our libraries have access to Overdrive. And so one of the things I like about what's coming with Aspen is that the libraries that have Overdrive can integrate Overdrive into Aspen just for their member, just for that library. And so when somebody from Richmond, one of our smallest libraries, searches the catalog, they don't see the Sunflower, the Overdrive stuff, but the bigger libraries like Leavenworth and Ottawa, they do. So there's a lot of advantages that I see to that. So, but this is really, I think we've moved slightly away from catalog.
Yeah.
It's all cataloging. I mean, it's all about how
That's
to,
true.
you know, we put these bib and item and serials records in, how are they used? I really would encourage folks to approach koha-US for an Aspen users group, that special interest group. That does sound like something that would be really useful, since the Aspen interface is affecting so many different koha systems.
I'd love to go to those meetings. I would not love to chair them. So, because I'm starting to do the consortia. I'll be the chair of the consortia group starting next month. So,
Well, and as you all know, since cataloging touches everything and everything touches the cataloging, we're always happy to talk about anything here. Let us know how that goes, Margaret.
Yeah, I will. I can't get any answers yet about, my supervisor is involved in meetings about it, but it's more like sales, she says. We haven't gotten into what else there is, how to configure it, all that part. So we have no idea about that. So
do you have a timeline yet for when you're going to move to that?
sometime this spring, May or something, maybe something like that.
We're looking at about a 6-month timeline to the contract will start in March and our go live date will be right after Labor Day. So they particularly figure that with 50 libraries, that's how long it will take to do a decent setup and get everything set up and configured and trained and all that stuff. So,
And we're just a standalone little county system. So I guess it won't take us that long, but we just don't know what we're supposed to do. I don't know if I'm supposed to do something. I don't know. I'm just wondering. So thank you, everybody, for helping me with this. I appreciate it. I didn't mean to go off topic so much.
It's not off topic. I mean, it's all about the cataloging records. How are people finding them? What, to what standards are they cataloged so people can find them? What data is important? And as was mentioned, that 008, here in our cataloging group, we can talk about the importance of these 008 fields and know what we're talking about. Whereas, as you know, when we go to the other special interest groups and we're like, but what about the 008 audience and language? Other people would be like, the what?
well, I guess mentioning the 008 again makes me want to ask the question: how did you figure out a way for identifying which records had a deficient 008, Julia?
Not really. We're just making sure that we have it filled in when we put new items in. So.
Okay,
yeah, that was my question too.
and I'm sure that's what we'll do as well. It seems to me it wouldn't be out of the question to write a report to identify items with insufficient 008s, or I'm sure the cataloging here is so inconsistent that I'm sure we have a lot of that issue, and maybe I'll try and think of something.
Well, a lot of our records that are missing that also have lots of other problems too. So.
That was part of our preparation. We've been talking about Aspen for a while, and so last year we did a record cleanup with Marchive, and to try to clean up a lot of the problems with our records. So hopefully that gets us closer to. Hopefully that solves some of our record problems. So.
One of the cool things I think is that even if I have a record in my system that's cataloged really, really well, and then Hill City Library has a record that just has a few things in it, but it has the same title and author, Aspen will put them together. And so my patrons will still see both of those items in that Ferberized group. So that's what I really like about Aspen, is that even if we have some weird records, they get grouped together a lot better than they used to be. And we are trying to encourage our libraries to attach their items to our good records instead of adding their own not good records. And we've been merging and things like that, but we never really did a real big cleanup project. But Aspen does actually make it a little bit easier for those records to all show up together.
Yes, good cataloging in a large system is an uphill battle.
That's why we do centralized cataloging.
Yeah, that's not in our purview. So
It's a little better, not much.
I'll also point out that there's good cataloging and good enough cataloging.
yeah. Well, I see you mentioned the MANA SQL reports library. I won't go at this meeting. I won't go into all the reasons I hate MANA. So
It does have challenges, but I have found some darn good reports there. And I contribute all my reports to MANA and to the Koha Reports library. So I really encourage people to do the same.
my biggest issue with MANA is that a lot of the reports are not contributed by catalogers. Because if they were, they would be better organized and have better descriptions. That's my biggest complaint, is that you find a lot of reports there that the title does not describe what the report actually does, and there's some other issues too, but it's kind of a disorganized mess in a lot of ways. So
while we're on that topic, George, I don't understand how to add a report I've written to the wiki. Is there instructions on how to do that, or?
there ought to be. I guess there aren't. I can't think of
actually
where there are. Is there a set of instructions for how to add something to the wiki?
Yeah, there are. Let me go look. Also, I've done it. I can help people anytime.
And I've done it a lot too. Maybe that's something that would be a good workshop topic for the conference this year, or maybe just an online educational opportunity for those people on the education committee.
Or both. What I can do is I will save something that I want to add to the Koha Wiki for March and share my screen and do a little demo.
Well,
and
I'm thinking Christopher and I could do a video on that too. Maybe we could invite Heather to come and walk us through how to add something to the wiki. Heather's never been a guest on our videos, so we're recording some videos. Christopher and I are meeting tomorrow, so we'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll reach out to you, Heather. How does that sound?
That sounds absolutely terrific. Let's do it, and then we can get some cataloging content.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of cataloging content because neither Christopher or I is really a cataloger
yet.
I'm working on it. I'm the cataloging expert for NEKLS. That shows you how badly off we are.
I will mention I may be going on jury duty next week. So if you reach out and you don't hear from me, it may be because I'm trying to keep up with things like on my cell phone at odd times. But yeah, do reach out.
I'll mention it to him tomorrow, and we'll send you an email. And we wouldn't be in any rush. We're pretty laid back about how we do these videos.
I do appreciate the laid back vibe in the videos. It kind of makes like, okay, this is easy. We can do this.
Yeah, one thing I've found about the reports library is that some of them are kind of out of date. I find report, oh, this is perfect. Nope, this field doesn't exist. And I don't know enough to correct it.
Well, I am now one of the wiki curators, but my focus right now has been on the notices and slips library because there's some severe deficiencies there. And so I've been trying to add a lot of content to notices and slips. So there's already, I've gotten 4 or 5 messages saying, thank God you added that. So I'm happy with that. But there are still some more things that need to be done with notices and slips, and I'm trying to work on that this round.
I still haven't had time to investigate why someone gets you're due today, but everything's blank. Something I have to look into.
Yeah, that sounds like a problem. That sounds like I'd have to see the notice template to know what was causing it. But yeah, it's totally possible that some badly formed part of the notice template can screw that up. So.
Oh, and I may semi-disappear for a week or two. Have another trip to visit my mother coming up when I can manage it.
Well, we have just a couple more minutes.
I guess I'd like to say thanks for pointing out that there's this new 023 field, because I hadn't seen that there had been a change there. So
I have a question about the 008. Is there a way in Koha to do a batch update on them? I'm not finding like the mark modification templates easy enough to work with for them.
I personally, if there's something that I would need to change there, I think it would be easier to figure out how to do that in Mark Edit than in the Koha. Mark modification templates do allow for regex, but then you have to learn regex. And you can use regex in, and for those of you that don't know, regex is short for regular expressions. And it's essentially a search and replace language that allows you to go through, like if you have like what is the 008, like 24 characters or something like that. It's a search and replace tool that would allow you to just maybe replace like character number 10 in that string instead of having to replace the whole string. You can just go through and say replace the 8th character or something like that to update that way. And so either way, between the Koha batch record modification and Mark Edit, you're going to have to find a way to write a piece of regex. But I've always found that it's easier to do that in Mark Edit than it is in the batch modification tool.
If we're talking about in the 008, though, if we're talking about language fields, I would point out that there may be, if you have a multilingual collection, there may be data in the 041 you can use, because the 041 has original and translated languages. So that could automate that for those records. Otherwise, there may be different languages and there may not be places in the record that you could draw it from and abstract an equivalent. So that might have to be like a catalog or telecommuting project. And if we're talking about audience, that if you use several different audience values possible in that field, that might definitely call for a human.
Yeah, it's we're having the same thing as Juliet, where things coming soon items do not, if they're juvenile, do not separate properly in Aspen because they're very short bibs, so they do not have the 008 in there. So it's something where it's just like, oh, I just love, with this batch of juvenile records I know I have, I would just love to throw that J in there. But nope, I've been having to go in one by one. So yeah, that's exactly a case where it kind of messes up the audience in Aspen.
There could be something possible with those if you're using particular frameworks, because frameworks, excuse me, now can have default date. No, yeah, shaking your hand. But yeah, Mark Edit.
use the default and then fast add. So yeah, we can't use the different frameworks in a consortium because we do centralized cataloging.
Yeah, I mean, we just use default framework for everything. So yeah, I would look at Marquette.
And we're lucky enough that we use our shelving locations as one is adult, one is juvenile, one is YA. So we can use the shelving location to get that coming soon juvenile stuff, even if they don't have those. So sometimes Aspen can link to different things for that kind of stuff, but not everybody uses them the same way we do.
I'm happy to say we do. It's a good idea.
Yeah, we do. And I'm not sure why there's juvenile and adults. So I'll have to check again. Yeah, that is something I can configure. So
yeah, check that out. See if that works.
And don't miss the classic XKCD cartoon that Fred put in the chat about regex.
There was a shirt, but I can't find it quickly.
Regular expressions are cool and they're really useful, but it is a very complicated language to learn. I know that Bywater, it seems to me, if I recollect right, Bywater actually paid one of their, sent one of their employees to take a class in it just so that they would have somebody that would know how to do it. It's like a semester of just learning, where to put the period slash question mark caret, how, as opposed to the period caret question mark slash, it's a very dense, not easily, not intuitive. That's the word I'm looking for. It's not an intuitive language.
I've learned a little bit of what I call like tourist regex. And yeah, it's a case of great power and great responsibility.
I feel that's how I am with JavaScript jQuery stuff. Just a tourist.
I gotta remember tourist regex. Yeah, can I write this down?
Well, it looks like we are nearing the top of the hour, so I am going to stop the recording. And thank you all for joining us and bringing such great things to the group.
Always fun.
We will meet again in March. I don't know if I have jury duty. I will mention while we're on the recording, whenever I can't make the meeting, I will usually reach out and let people know ahead of time and see if there's a guest chair, and if not. So anyway, pay attention to your email lists, and I hope to see you all in March. Thank you.